The second your paycheck arrives in your bank account, you have exactly 20 seconds before your brain starts convincing you that you deserve to spend it on something ridiculous. I'm dead serious about this. 20 seconds is legitimately all it takes for most people to start mentally budgeting money they haven't even finished downloading yet. Your brain immediately starts doing the math on that new gaming console you've been eyeing, or how many delivery orders you could squeeze in this month, or whether now's finally the time to upgrade your entire wardrobe, you know? But here's the thing that nobody talks about. Those same 20 seconds could be the absolute turning point between staying financially stuck for your entire life and actually building real, tangible wealth that lasts. What if I told you there was a simple routine you could do every single time you get paid that would automatically put you ahead of probably 95% of people financially? My name is John, and I've spent the last decade watching people destroy their financial futures, and honestly, the pattern's always the same. They make decent money, they get regular paychecks, but somehow at the end of every month, they're completely broke again. If you're sick of that cycle and you actually want to build something real with your income, you need to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel because I'm about to show you exactly what to do the moment that money hits your account. Here's something that will probably shock you if you're honest with yourself. Most people genuinely have no idea what happens to their money once it shows up. They assume somehow their bills get paid. Food mysteriously appears in their fridge, like their phone bill just renews itself magically. But beyond those vague generalities, it's basically financial chaos. They're walking through life like financial zombies, completely unconscious about where every dollar actually goes. Then they wonder why they're perpetually broke. The average person treats their paycheck like they just found a winning lottery ticket. They get excited, they spend most of it on random junk they don't actually need, and then they spend the next 3 weeks eating instant noodles for dinner and obsessively checking their bank balance every morning. Successful people, though, they do something completely different. They have a plan. They have an actual system. And that system kicks into gear the exact moment that paycheck hits their account. It's not complicated. It's not flashy. It definitely won't help you go viral on social media, but honestly, it works. And it works so consistently that once you start doing it, you'll immediately wonder how you ever managed your finances any other way. Here's the real secret that changes everything. Your paycheck isn't just money you earned during the last 2 weeks. It's literally your future freedom in monthly installments. Every single dollar that shows up in your account is a tiny building block that either contributes to your long-term wealth or completely vanishes into the void of mindless spending. Most people have this completely backwards. They pay all their bills first. Then they buy whatever they want. Then they try to save whatever's supposedly left over. Except there's never anything left over. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a massive hole cut in the bottom and wondering why you can't hold water in it. The people who actually build real wealth, they flip this entire approach on its head. They pay themselves first. They allocate every single dollar with intention. They make their money work just as hard as they work to earn it. They understand that building real financial success isn't actually about earning more money, although that obviously helps. But it's fundamentally about having a system that functions no matter what you earn. Think about it this way. If you make $40,000 per year and you consistently save and invest 10% of it, you're going to end up in a way better financial position than someone earning $80,000 per year who spends literally every single penny. The person earning less but following a system will retire comfortably, while the higher earner will be working past age 75 because they never bothered to learn how to actually manage what they had. This brings us to the absolute foundation of everything we're discussing today. Before you can build wealth, you need to know precisely where your money is going. And I mean precisely. Not some rough estimate about your major expenses, but a completely clear understanding of exactly how every dollar gets allocated. The first step in this paycheck routine is something that sounds incredibly boring, but it's actually critical to your entire financial success. You need to determine exactly what percentage of your income goes toward necessities. These are literally the things you cannot live without. We're talking about housing like your rent or mortgage payment. We're talking about food that actually keeps you alive. We're talking about basic transportation to get to work. We're talking about essential utilities like electricity and water. We're talking about healthcare, you know? Notice I didn't mention your premium cable subscription, or your gym membership you never use, or that subscription to 8 different streaming services. Those might feel necessary when you're binge-watching shows at midnight, but they're absolutely not required for actual survival. This is where most people completely mess this up. They look at their spending and somehow convince themselves that literally everything is a necessity. That expensive car payment becomes essential transportation. The daily visits to expensive coffee shops become necessary fuel for getting through the day. The weekly restaurant meals become crucial for social life and mental health. But here's the reality that you probably don't want to hear. If you're spending more than 60% of your take-home income on true necessities, you're either living somewhere way too expensive for your actual income, or you're calling luxuries necessities because it makes you feel better about your spending habits. Let me give you an actual example to make this concrete. Imagine someone earns $50,000 per year. After taxes and everything, they're taking home roughly $3,000 per month. If their rent is $1,500, their car payment is $300, and they spend $400 on groceries. They're already at $2,200 monthly. That's about 73% of their actual take-home pay, which is honestly too high. But here's where it gets interesting. That same person might look at their budget and think they're barely surviving, especially when they're also paying for those streaming services, eating out constantly, buying fancy coffee every single day, and making tons of small purchases that seem insignificant individually, but add up to hundreds of monthly. The real key is being absolutely brutal about the difference between what you need and what you want. Your future financial freedom literally depends on making this distinction clear and consistently. Once you know your true necessity percentage, you'll know exactly how much money is available for everything else, and that everything else is where the actual magic happens. This is where you can finally start building wealth instead of just barely surviving paycheck to paycheck. The second critical step happens before you even think about spending money on anything fun. You need to make absolutely sure you're current on any debt payments you might have. This isn't about eliminating all your debt immediately, although that's obviously a great goal. This step is about protecting your credit score and avoiding late fees that can completely torpedo your progress. Your credit score is basically your financial reputation. And in our current economic system, that reputation determines basically everything. It determines what interest rate you'll pay on a mortgage. It determines whether you can even qualify for a decent car loan. It determines whether you can rent an apartment. It sometimes determines whether you can even get certain jobs. Here's something surprising about credit scores. The difference between excellent credit management and terrible credit management often comes down to just a single missed payment. If you make 99% of your payments on time, that's considered good. But if you drop to 96% of your payments on time, your credit score absolutely tanks. Think about that. In school, 96% gets you an A. In credit scoring, it gets you labeled as a risk. The credit system is harsh, but the rules are incredibly simple. Make your minimum payments every single time they're due, and your credit score will basically take care of itself. This step isn't glamorous, and it won't make you feel wealthy, but it's completely essential for long-term success. Think of it as the foundation that everything else sits on top of. Now that we've established the foundation, it's time to talk about something that most people completely ignore until it's way too late. Building an emergency fund. I know. Emergency funds sound about as exciting as watching paint completely dry in slow motion. But hear me out, because this might actually be the single most important part of your entire financial strategy. An emergency fund is exactly what it sounds like. It's money you set aside for when life inevitably throws you a curveball. And trust me, life absolutely loves throwing curveballs. Your car unexpectedly breaks down right before your biggest presentation. Your laptop completely dies the moment you need it most. Your pet eats something they shouldn't and needs expensive emergency surgery on a random Tuesday. The goal is to have 3 to 6 months of your actual living expenses saved in an account that you can access immediately, not invested in the stock market where it might lose value right when you need it, not locked up in some certificate of deposit where you can't touch it for months, just sitting there in a boring savings account, completely liquid and ready to rescue you when things inevitably go wrong. Let's go back to our earlier example. If someone's monthly necessities cost $2,200, their emergency fund should sit somewhere between $6,600 and $13,000. That might sound like an impossible amount to save, especially if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, but remember, you're not trying to save it all at once. You're building it gradually. Here's the thing about emergency funds that nobody actually talks about. They're not just about the money itself. They're about the peace of mind. When you have 3 to 6 months of expenses just sitting in your savings account, you literally sleep differently at night. You walk into work with genuine confidence because you know that if something happens to your job, you're not going to end up eating cheap ramen noodles and living in your car. But this is where most people completely mess it up. They think their emergency fund needs to be earning amazing returns. So they invest it in risky assets, or lock it up in accounts where they can't access it quickly. Then, when an actual emergency happens, their money is either worth significantly less than when they put it in, or they can't access it without paying penalties. Your emergency fund should be liquid and incredibly boring. Put it in a high-yield savings account that's protected by government insurance, and then basically forget about it. You're not trying to get rich off your emergency fund. You're trying to stay financially stable when life gets chaotic. Once your emergency fund is actually established, you've officially graduated from pure financial survival mode into actual wealth building mode. This is where things genuinely start getting interesting. Step 4 is where you start investing for your future self. And this is where the actual magic of compound interest starts working in your favor. If your employer offers any kind of retirement plan with matching contributions, this needs to be your absolute first investment priority. Think about employer matching this way. If your boss walked up to you and offered to give you free money in exchange for you putting some of your own income into a retirement account, you'd think they'd completely lost their mind, right? But that's literally what employer matching is. It's free money that most people just leave on the table because they don't understand how powerful it is. Let's say your company matches 3% of your salary and you make $60,000 per year. That means if you contribute $1,800 annually to your retirement account, your employer also contributes $1,800. You just doubled your money instantly. Show me any other investment that guarantees a 100% return on day one. It basically doesn't exist. Beyond the employer match, you should aim to invest about 10% of your actual gross income for retirement. I know that might sound like a lot, especially if you're just starting out. But remember, this money is working for you across decades. The earlier you start, the significantly less you'll need to contribute each month to reach your retirement goals. Here's something that might seriously blow your mind about retirement investing. If someone starts investing $300 per month at age 25 and earns an average 8% return annually, they'll have roughly $1.2 million by age 65. But if that same person waits until age 35 to start investing that identical amount, they'll only have around $450,000 at retirement, That 10-year delay cost them almost $700,000. Time is legitimately money when it comes to investing. Every single month you wait is money you're throwing away. But here's what's actually crazy about this step. Most people overthink it to the point where they never actually start investing. They spend months researching the perfect strategy, reading about different fund options, analyzing expense ratios like they're trying to solve world peace. The reality is that for most people, A simple, diversified index fund that tracks the overall stock market is actually perfectly adequate for building wealth over time. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You don't need to time the market. You don't need to outsmart professional investors. You just need to start investing consistently and let compound interest do the heavy lifting. Once you've got your retirement investing running on autopilot, it's time to tackle any debt that's not your mortgage. This is where things get emotionally charged, because debt often represents past mistakes or circumstances that were beyond your control. There are two main strategies for paying off debt, and honestly, both work if you actually stick to them. The first is the avalanche method, where you pay off debts with the highest interest rates first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money and interest over time. The second approach is the snowball method, where you pay off your smallest debts first, regardless of interest rates. This isn't the most mathematically optimal, but it can be incredibly motivating because you see debts disappearing quickly, which gives you momentum. I personally prefer the snowball method because personal finance is more about psychology than mathematics. If paying off your smallest debt first keeps you motivated to continue, then that's the right strategy for you, even if it costs you some extra interest. The key is picking one approach and sticking with it until all your non-mortgage debt is gone. Don't overthink it. Don't switch strategies halfway. Don't ignore your debt hoping it vanishes. After you've handled your employer match and you're making progress on debt, you can start exploring other investment options, like opening your own retirement accounts or investing in regular taxable accounts. A Roth account is particularly attractive because all your gains grow completely tax-free. You pay taxes on the money you contribute now, but when you retire and withdraw, you won't owe taxes on the growth. It's like planting a tree today and never paying taxes on the fruit forever. Contribution limits change annually, but the concept stays the same. You're investing money you've already paid taxes on, and in exchange, all future growth is completely yours, without sharing it with the government. The final step that ties absolutely everything together is probably the most important one, and it's what actually separates people who build wealth from people who just talk about it. You need to automate everything we've discussed. Here's the thing about willpower. It's like a muscle that gets tired throughout the day. You might wake up Monday morning feeling completely motivated to manage your money perfectly. But by Thursday evening, when you're exhausted from work and stressed about everything, that motivation has completely disappeared. You'll look at your account and think, I'll move money to savings next week when I have energy. Except next week, you'll be even more tired. This is why automation is absolutely critical. When your money moves automatically according to your plan, you remove emotion and laziness from the entire equation. Your money gets allocated correctly, whether you're having a good day or a terrible day, whether you're motivated or completely burned out. When your paycheck hits your checking account, let it sit for one day just to make sure everything clears. Then, on the day after payday, automatic transfers happen like clockwork. A predetermined amount moves from your checking account to your savings account. From there, other automatic transfers move money to specific goals. Maybe some goes to emergency fund. Maybe some goes to your investment accounts. Maybe some goes to a separate account for taxes if you're self-employed. The beautiful part is you never have to think about it. You never have to remember to move money around. You never have to fight the temptation to spend money that should be going to your future. It just happens automatically, like your rent or your phone bill. But here's where most people completely mess up automation. They set up all these automatic transfers and then never adjust them when their situation changes. They get a raise, but keep saving the same amount. They pay off debt but forget to redirect that payment toward investments. They're running on financial autopilot, but they never update their flight plan. This paycheck routine isn't complicated, but it works because most people never actually follow a system. Start treating your money like the WW wealth building tool it actually is instead of monopoly money you found in your couch. Automate everything. Stick to the plan. And in 5 years, You'll be amazed at how simple this was while everyone else is still wondering where their money disappeared to.